Hello, everybody. My name is Sharissa Bloomberg. I'm a psychologist. I work with mental health in the workplace, creating psychologically safe environments and creating cultures of integrity. The topic we're going to talk about today is very close to my heart. It's about building trust and credibility in organizations. So I've coined the following phrase: integrity costs nothing, but when we lose it, we lose everything. And this can be someone being dishonest, not being loyal, not keeping to their word, or of course, corruption. And reputation can take years to build, either individually or as an organization. But when we lose it, it's a long road to recovery, if we ever can recover from that and rebuild the trust. And trust is a vital form of capital for every leader today. When there's turbulence, we turn to our business leaders. And trust can be defined as our belief in the abilities of our leader, their character, their values. And let's just talk about how important it is universally, not only in South Africa. So, according to Anton Kraus, who is the director of Global Infrastructure of Anti-Corruption Center in South Africa, he says trust is one of the three pillars of capitalism. And it's what makes world markets work. I mean, that's a huge statement. Trust is the new currency of global economy. So if it's going to make markets work, surely it's going to make organizations work. So let's just go back to looking at what needs to happen to build these trust and credibility in the organization. So the benefits, firstly, of having the trust is that employees feel safe. They're able to take risks. They can express themselves freely. They feel creative. They feel innovative. They feel if there's a little mistake, there's an open door policy, they can come and say, I've messed up a little bit. How do we rectify this? But when trust is instilled in an organization, tasks are accomplished with less difficulty because it's more likely that they'll collaborate with each other and communicate with each other in productive ways. And as a result, of course, that impacts on productivity and outcomes are more successful. Now, according to a Harvard Business Review in 2017, these stats are really very, very interesting. A company, an organization with high trust reports 74% less stress, 106% more energy, 50% that there's more productivity, higher productivity, 13% fewer sick days, 70% more engagement of employees, 29% more satisfaction, 40% less burnout. Now, these stats have been confirmed, and this is very interesting. I'm going to repeat them because these high levels is something that we need to work on so that every organization can accomplish this. 74% less stress, 108% more energy, 50% hyper productivity, 13% fewer sick days, 7% more engagement, 29% satisfaction, 40% less burnout. And as everyone knows at this time of year, and any time really, but the burnout is rife. Adrenal fatigue is rife. I've spoken about this in a previous course where there is exhaustion. And let me say that burnout is actually more rife in organizations that don't have integrity because they're toxic. So people in low trust companies, on the other hand, as I've said, they're bogged down by toxicness. There can be bullying. There's office politics. There's infighting. And you know what? This is a knock-on effect because people take this home and it affects them, their health, it affects their families, it affects their children, their animals, everything. When you're working in an environment with toxicness and you can't trust your leaders, it will have an effect on you mentally, physically, and emotionally. And also with low integrity, people and employees are more likely to withhold information. They hoard onto reserves because they don't feel safe sharing it. And decision-making can be slow and less effective. And there's so much distrust. Therefore, having high trust in organizations has never been so important. I want to share with you this week, mentored someone who walked out of a toxic, I wanted to say relationship, but a toxic environment, obviously relationship with their manager. They weren't treated fairly, and it was building and building and building the whole year. One small thing, they just asked them on a Friday at 4 o'clock to do something, and this person had had enough. They've had enough of being abused. They've had enough of mistrust. They've had enough of their word not being heard. They had enough of being managed poorly. They literally resigned, boom, on the spot. And this isn't the first person I've worked with. I've worked with someone, and I won't say in government, the same thing. Couldn't take what was going on due to corruption, due to toxicness, due to horrific work circumstances of miscommunication. This high-level person took early retirement and walked. We are losing good people, and the dead wood, or some people say the rot, remains. So let's talk about this. It starts with leaderships, and it starts with the top. The leaders have to set the tone for the culture and establish the norms of behavior. And of course, one of them also, I want to say, is job clarity. There's so many things going wrong when someone is not clear on the job, on the roles that they play, or they say yes all the time and they get more work piled onto them because there isn't clear boundaries, or they say no and then their life is miserable at work. So many issues I can tell you with working with people in toxic relationships without credibility and without trust. So how does a leader focus on this? And here's how a couple of things I want to say that they can do to create, I love these words, psychologically safe environments where a person feels comfortable. So the first thing to foster as a leader is that kind of environment, but it starts with them. They are the brand. Recently, I spoke about brand management as part of self-leadership. You are the brand as a leader. So you have to be the role play. You have to role play the person. You have to show everybody else exactly that you're true to your word. You role model the behavior, role play the behavior, everything. Be transparent for a start. As a leader, share information openly. Keep the team updated as to what's going on. Don't make decisions in secret, and don't withhold resources from employees. So be open, tell your employees exactly what's going on, and be authentic. To be a leader who creates this kind of environment, they need to have self-awareness. They need to know who they are, what they value, what they're good at, their morals, and they need to have high EQ, high emotional intelligence. And that's also something that's lacking with many leaders. They need to have the intrapersonal skills. That's how well they know themselves, the interpersonal skills, how well they react with others, their flexibility, how well they manage change, their optimism. All these levels, their 17 scales of EQ, they need to be on top of this. They need to know exactly their strengths, and I don't call them weaknesses. They need to know their strengths and their challenges. They need to be reliable, follow through on their commitments. So many leaders say they're going to do something, but they do something else. So they don't keep to their word. They say one thing, they do another, and they act on something else. It creates such miscommunication all the way down, all the levels. And if you can't rely on what a leader has to say, then we're not going to have faith in the leader. So remember, we're still talking leadership here before we talk about the rest of the environment. Now, I have worked in organizations where, because we don't trust the leader and there isn't credibility and in a culture of integrity, I've heard corridor talk. They'll say, oh, you know, let's call him, what can we call him? Greg, the CEO. Oh, Greg said this. I've heard the corridor talk. Oh, don't believe a word he says. You can't trust him. So that is very sad to have corridor talk like this when your manager and your CEO says something and everybody laughs because he's not credible. He or she is not credible. So your leader also has to establish expertise. He has, or she has to have, we have to have confidence in that leader's capabilities. They have to have the technical skills, the know-how as well, obviously. and the sound evidence to suggest to the industry that they have the best practice. And they have to demonstrate fairness. They're fair with one employee as they are with the other. And fairness in terms of growth, to provide the team members with opportunities of learning so they can develop their skill set. Whether it's projects, training programs, new ideas. A very good leader will turn to his team and say, how can we improve? What ideas do you want to implement? And train the other leaders in the organization and the managers. There needs to be leadership development. So new leaders coming in, or the next generation, will know how to build trust within their teams. That's why it's so important to share the training. Okay, so before we carry on, I'm going to just recap the few headings we've said. It's about transparency, authenticity, showing vulnerability, show when there's been mistakes, talk to everyone, say we've messed up here. This is what we've learned from it. Be reliable, follow through on commitments, establish expertise, demonstrate fairness, train trainers to build leadership development, and meet regularly with the team. Pop in. We had a wonderful leader when I was contracted to work with their organization. He would take time off to walk down the corridors and pop into everyone's office and say, hey, hi, how are you doing? How's the family? He'd know people by name, the wives, the mothers, aunties, sisters, children. They had such respect for this leader and such high integrity that he had. And sadly, when this leader left due to unforeseen circumstances and corruption, I won't say everybody, a lot of people walked out with him. So when leaders leave, they take the best people with them. So recapping, leaders set the tone. But sadly, trust in workplace is declining, and we are struggling to establish trust. So Warren Buffett says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. He says, if you think about that, you'll do things differently. And that is so true. And Friedrich Nietzsche says, and this is what what are the words I'm thinking of? It is so many people can relate to this. Friedrich Nietzsche says, I'm not upset that you lied to me. I'm upset that from now on, I can't believe you. And this is so true, even in relationships and in everything. It's not the fact you lied. It's the fact that how do I ever trust you again? So, and trust, of course, opens doors to opportunities. It can help leaders grow companies beyond their wildest expectations. And business are slow to stop when they actually don't have trust. We know that social media now, it's so important when everything is out there, and word of mouth is so powerful. We have reviews all the time. You just need a couple of bad reviews. I look at organizations before I work with them. Do they get a 5-star review? What are people saying about them? That is so important. The word of mouth spreads like anything. People say, oh, you don't do business with them. Oh, it's a terrible leader. Or they don't keep to their word. They don't reply to the emails. They say they phone you and they never will. We really got to think about that if we don't have the integrity and we don't have cultures of trust. Very, 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 very important. Okay, so good leaders get it right. They champion humanity, empathy, authenticity, and there's employee engagement and retention, which I've seen. Less people leave, and we are dependable. So you've got to earn it, you've got to listen intently, and you've got to model the trust. So now I want to talk a little bit more about some thoughts I've thrown in from my experiences working with organizations. Besides the empathy and humility, it's so amazing. Leaders think if I show empathy, I'm not strong, and it's not. You can be a strong leader and have empathy as well. Right. So building trust is the most important responsibility of every single leader. It differentiates the best from the rest. So it's about creating inclusive cultures. And, I've created role models and ambassadors. It's so very rare to have an integrity ambassador in your organization, that they've done an integrity course. They're there to role model the behavior. They're there to pat everybody on the back. They're there to encourage morality with everyone. Sign an integrity pledge. I have one, that we all try and do the right thing every day. Have something like winning ways. I worked in a construction company years ago, and someone devised this wonderful idea of winning ways. Write down 10, 20 ways that we are winning in our organization. We do what right, list them, and then list the things that are not working. But don't only list them, suggest the ways that they have to change. And do team strengthening. Now, this is what to do. You get little teams together, and you get the leader or the manager of each team, and we say to the manager, what do you expect of your team? And he lists it down. All brainstorming ways. This is what I expect: honesty, deliver on time, etc. And then the team say what they expect from their leader. And we have a contract, and everybody walks out of there with clear strategies of how to communicate and how to be the best team ever. Have an employee of the month. I know organizations do have this. Validate feedback, grow people, pat them on the back. We are humans. We want to know that we are doing something right. We want to be heard. When you don't get a pat on the back for something that you've done and you don't get credited, we just don't try harder next time. Well, a lot of people don't. Okay. Have a no policy for bullying. Have a no policy for creating toxic environment. Constantly, I've said this earlier, constantly check in with teams. Do the walkabouts. Happy employees are more productive. And have an open door policy as a leader. So people can pop in and check in and just say, I want to ask about this. Have good communication skills all the time, that there's open communication, and we won't patronize everyone or put them down. Employees must feel they can approach the manager if they've messed up. So encourage this open communication, encourage transparency, accountability, have training on this, talk about it, to have policies in place. So, and it's so simple as well. If you're training customer service or whatever service you're in, return calls, answer emails, do what you say you're going to do. Train your staff to do that, because sometimes the first port of call is one of your staff members who's just not engaging, just not getting back, and it gives the whole organization a bad name. So people only want to do business with someone they trust. And I say this again, we will not do business with anyone we can't trust, whether it's your repair people that come into your home, whether it is your person, your gardener, your domestic, your bigger, service providers, your stakeholders, your business partner. I've recently had a horrific experience. A business partner stole everything. I didn't build the trust and the credibility. We really have to work on this. Not everyone can be trusted. And when you have a high level of integrity, you expect it from everybody else. And I'm sorry to say, you do get hurt. So the more we talk about integrity, the more we talk about building cultures, the more we can grow this, because it is something that's needed in the world. Like Anton Kraus says, it's the new currency of the global economy. So I want to end with saying this. Please, let's grow our integrity conscious skills. And presently, the world is in a trust deficit, a trust crisis. And the cost of this crisis is unfathomable. So, where corruption is rife everywhere, let's start building integrity-safe cultures, cultures that with trust and credibility. Because here's the thing, buildings have to have an integrity structure, be integrity structurally safe, right? And no one would want to work in a building that is not integrity safe. So if we lack integrity, it's the basic foundation of every building, of every organization, of every person, in every culture. So let's start looking at building our integrity, talk about it, make the word sexy again, make the word current, talk about it. Talk about trust in everyday life. Raise the consciousness, make people aware, because it's vital for any form of successful business to thrive, and for that business to thrive and people to be happy to work there. Thank you all. I wish you all the very, very best. Thank you for your time and listening to me. All the best. Bye-bye.